Again, my name is Christina Gibner. I'm going to talk with you guys. The name of this presentation is called I Have an AAC Device. Now what? So it's kind of figuring out what do I do now once I have an AAC device. So just to give you some introductions and background about myself, I'm a bilingual speech-language pathologist. I earned my undergraduate and graduate degrees from Florida State University. And my favorite thing about my job is that I can support and help individuals communicate. And my job is to help facilitate that language and provide them with a voice to help them communicate. I'm a firm believer that everyone has a message and everyone's message deserves to be heard. And I want to make sure that I'm giving every individual that accessibility to do so. So this is that interactive component that I was talking about. I want to know, what is your experience with AAC? What's your role and relationship with an AAC device? If you've ever used one, if you haven't ever used one, if you don't even know what AAC stands for. And then if you have had some experience with AAC, I want you to tell me any of the specific apps or devices you have previously used. So I do know that I think last I saw there was only one person on. So if you want to put it in the chat, you can. If you want to unmute yourself, you can. But if you don't feel comfortable, that's okay too. All right, no worries. I like to give some time just in case anyone's typing. Again, like I said, feel free to jump in whenever you want. I will explain what AAC is. AAC stands for Augmentative and Alternative Communication. I really like to think of it as just a different way to communicate. It's a different language. Sometimes people are able to communicate, using words from their mouth, but other times people are able to communicate using words from a device. And that's really what AAC is for. It's just a different modality, a different way for individuals to communicate. I think it's great, and it's a resource that sometimes isn't utilized as much. And I think it really needs to be encouraged and nurtured so that other individuals are able to use it. It's just it's a way of communicating. So there are a bunch of different apps and devices out there. I'll kind of go over a couple of them today, but there is no one device or one specific app or program that's better than the other. It's just more on user preference and what works best for that individual, and in which ways are they able to communicate using said device or app or device or whatever it is that benefits them for communication purposes. So these are the goals that I have today. Again, I try to make it as enjoyable as possible. So I want you to remember some of these goals. So I try to title it as Goals Just Want to Have Fun, like the song. So at the end of this presentation, my goal is for you to become familiar and comfortable with devices. Now keep in mind, this does not mean that you're going to leave this session or this presentation and say, oh, I know how to use a device. I'm good to go. I don't need any more support. No. That this device, AAC, is, again, it's like a language. You can't just be dropped in the middle of France and say, yes, I now can speak French. No, it takes time, it takes exposure. So my goal is just to increase that little bit of familiarity and comfortability with these devices. I also want to talk with you about choosing the right vocabulary. And again, this depends person to person, but what's the right vocabulary to choose, especially when we're starting out using these devices? How do we introduce it naturally into our everyday life, which segues nicely into my next point, is introducing vocabulary within a natural setting. How do we do this in the most natural environment possible? How do we make it enjoyable, motivating, functional? So what is it that we're trying to accomplish, and how can we do it? So there are a bunch of different devices, as I have previously mentioned. So there's different apps, there's different types of technological devices, and it varies in all different types of quote unquote technology. So you can have something like a low-tech device, like the picture exchange communication system. It's the one in the top left corner that has these little pictures on it with Velcro strips attached to a binder, essentially. And this is a very low-tech way of communicating. Again, it's personal preference. Is this the best modality? Is this the best way for the communicator to communicate? This type of device relies on someone else sometimes to create these little pictures for the individual user. So it does have its pros and its cons, but maybe they're someone who they're just starting out with AAC and they're learning, oh, I'm trying to understand if I give them this picture of bubbles and I exchange it, then I get my bubbles back. So again, it just kind of varies on what the user needs and what is beneficial for the user. Some people are capable of using these high-tech, robust devices, but they prefer a low-tech device. So again, it's user preference. There's also an option called a mid-tech option, which is exactly how it sounds. It's in the middle of low-tech, in the middle of high-tech. It's a nice blend between the two. So there's that low-tech component, maybe of those pages or templates rather, that you have to kind of switch in and out. But then there's also the high-tech component where you're able to record your voice. So once they select an icon or select a button, there'll be some verbal output or audio output coming out so the individual can hear it, or whoever your communication partner is can hear it without actually having to see whatever it is that you're trying to show them or hand to them. And then we have high-tech, which again, is that robust type of language where they're able to have access to a variety of words very quickly and really just at their fingertips. They select an icon, maybe it transitions to another page, they select another icon, transitions to another page, and they're able to find whatever word it is that they want to say. Again, there's so many different types of just devices, even within each tech category. So it does vary, but I highly encourage you just to become as familiar as you can with these different types of devices, especially if you know a user who's having one. Try to loan one out yourself and see, how can I communicate using this specific device? All right, so let's get familiar. So I want you to become, kind of how I was saying, I want you to become familiar with the type of device you are using or the user that you know of is using. So the best way to do it is to seek out training about the programming of your device. Let's say it's a very specific high-tech type of programming. You can reach out to the vendor who sells that type of device and say, hey, I'm looking for training on maybe how to program this page, or maybe I'm learning how to incorporate this device into my life. Can you give me supports? Can you give me suggestions? You can reach out to the vendor rep as well for maybe a specific type of device or specific support that you might need. Play around with it when it arrives. I think that's the biggest one that I can recommend. Just sit with it and try to see what words you can find on the device. Try to see if you can create a sentence yourself and how hard it is or how easy it is for you. Because if it's difficult for you, it might be difficult also for the AAC user who's using it. And it's just kind of that familiarity. It's kind of how I was saying, you're not going to learn French in one night just by plopping into France. You really have to get exposed to it. You can also watch videos on how your device works. It's really, really easy to go into YouTube, type in the specific device you're learning about or using, and then you'll find a plethora of videos on how that specific device works. And then the best one that I can, not the best one, but one of the ones that I can highly encourage and recommend is to reach out to your FAAST rep, because every, not every county, but every area within Florida has their own FAAST rep. You can reach out to them for that extra support, and we can really provide you with a lot of the services that were previously mentioned. If we're not able to, then we can hand it off to someone who can. So I really highly encourage you. I mean, obviously you probably already know, but reach out to your FAAST rep and see if they're able to provide you with that extra support. Okay, but we're going to start because there's a lot and it's too much sometimes and it's overwhelming. For anyone in case they're driving or maybe they can't, they have some visual difficulties, I wanted to explain that I have a picture of David from a TV show saying it's too much. It's a gif of him shouting, it's too much, it's too much. So that's how a lot of families feel sometimes. It's very overwhelming. That's how I know the user feels sometimes. It's very overwhelming. It's, yes, I'm so excited to have a way to communicate, but what do I do now? So at least in regards to the speech therapy world, we differentiate our vocabulary into essentially two categories and in regards to AAC. So you have our core words. So our core words are words that make up a percentage of words that we mostly use throughout our communication daily. And they're present across different languages. This isn't just present within the English language. This is something that's present within a variety of languages. They can be verbs, adjectives, pronouns, typically less likely to be very specific or context specific words like corgi, monkey, Disney, grapes, dance. But some examples of core words would be stop, go, get, turn, on, off, up, down, where you're able to use a variety of these words in a variety of different situations. You use them frequently throughout the day, and it's not just context specific to that one activity or that one item. Again, this is usually where I try to have that interactive component. So if you're able to participate, go ahead. But I always like to ask everyone, like, what are some different ways that you can use the core word turn? So I'll give you an option, and then you can also provide me with one. I like to say, oh, you can turn the key in the door to open it, which is another core word, open. Okay, I see something in the chat, so I'm gonna hop on. Turn on the TV, it's perfect. Another way to use turn too is you can take turns. Like, it's your turn, it's my turn. So turn is really just one of those words that you can have a variety of meanings, which is, or not meanings rather, but a variety of use of it, which is, again, that core word component. All right, so as I was saying, we have those core words, so we can separate them into these two categories, core words or fringe words. So our fringe words make up about 20% of our everyday language, and they're specific to a topic, individual, environment. I can say at least like in Miami, we have very, I think, cultural topic specific words like Domino's. I know maybe if you live in Miami, you might hear Domino's fairly frequently, or croqueta or café con leche, but outside of Miami, you might not hear those words as frequently. So fringe words don't have to be used only for high-tech devices. You can use those for low-tech and mid-tech, but just keep in mind that they're, again, that context specific. So words like coffee, Paw Patrol, nail polish, elf, they're not very specific, and they're not being able to use throughout your daily life. You know, for instance, the word elf. Elf is a very seasonal word. You're not saying elf frequently throughout your day, but just keep in mind that it could be they have some words that are like personal core words, which would be fringe words for individuals who have these dedicated or these passions rather for these types of items. But typically our fringe words are not words that we use on the daily. It's kind of context specific, maybe seasonal specific, or even environmental specific, just kind of depends. They are still important though, because they support and expand our vocabulary. It's one of those things where you really can't have one without the other, and I'll show you in a little bit. So again, I have my little battle of the words. I try to ask this question: how frequently throughout your day do you use the word Disney? Now, if you live in Florida, probably maybe a little more frequent than for someone who lives in Maine, but you don't really use Disney all that often. I'm not sitting in the office saying like, ooh, I'm gonna do a Disney dance today or anything of that sort. But you know, think about how frequently throughout your day you might use the word more. So if I'm sitting in the office like, oh, I need to go get more paper, I need to put more paper into the printer, I need to go do you know, more groceries, I need more time to finish a project. So more is more likely of a word to be within our language on a daily basis versus Disney. So I always like to ask, which word is core and which word is fringe? Kind of gave it away. But typically Disney, I would categorize as a fringe word. More, I would categorize as a core word. So here I have a sentence for you guys, and I would love for you guys to fill it out if you can. If not, I will gladly do it. But I want you to pick out the core words from this sentence. I finished my spaghetti. In your opinion, what do you think, or which one do you think is the core word? I'll give you a hint. There's more than one. Perfect. So yeah, it's I finished mine. So now I'm going to talk with you about another sentence, and I want you to see if you can find the fringe words. The girl eats the Mickey Mouse ice cream. Again, very context specific. Clearly, I had Disney on my mind when I was making this presentation. I was going to show you. It would be Mickey Mouse ice cream. Girl and eats would be considered a core word. So they're just nice little sentences or additions to sentences that are added on, but girl and eats would be those core words, and then Mickey Mouse ice cream would be your fringe words, mostly because, again, we don't say Mickey Mouse fairly often, nor do we have ice cream on a daily basis. I mean, some people might, but for the most part, we're not talking about ice cream on the daily. right, so usually this is kind of where I ask you guys to make your own core word sentence and make your own fringe word sentence. And I want you to try to do it with only core words. It might be a little bit easier to make a sentence using only core words. And I can give you an example myself. A word, a core sentence rather could be, or rather a phrase could be my turn. The word my and the word turn are both core words, but trying to make a sentence using only fringe words is a little bit more difficult. Something like mermaid, bubble, party. So I made a sentence, kind of, I made a phrase, but is it really a functional sentence? Can anyone really understand? And I will at least say it with this much with the core sentence. You can say my turn, but we can expand on that. My turn to play, my turn to go on the computer, my turn to watch TV. So it would be nice if we were able to expand it so we can be specific and not just have my turn. It's like, okay, my turn for what? So that's why I like to make sure that we're including both core and fringe words, so we're able to have the AAC user expand on their sentence and not just be so stuck in one way of communicating, because that's not how it is. That's not how we communicate. So we need to make sure that we provide them with that support. So a great way, at least for caregivers, and I feel like a speech therapist themselves, or anyone who's going to be working alongside an individual who uses an AAC device, is to use the SET model. The SET model was created by Joy Zabala. I always think I say her last name wrong, so I probably do. But she created this SET model. And what's really nice is the SET model was intended to be used for evaluations, but you can use this in your everyday life. It's not just limited towards evaluations. You can use this for anything and everything. So it says SET because it was created with a student in mind, but you can use it for anyone. It's not just a student, it's an individual. So you want to try to figure out, what are the individual's strengths and interests? What is it that motivates them? What is it that they enjoy doing? Then we want to figure out the environment, and what type of environment or area are we targeting communication? Where are we doing this? Where are we expecting them to communicate? Which brings me into that task. What are the expectations for the individual in that moment? What are they expected to do? What is the task at hand? What are we trying to accomplish? And then finally, it's the tool. What device are they being used, or what devices rather are being used to support the individual? What type of device? Is it a low tech? Is it a high tech? What type of vocabulary do they have on there? And really what's nice about this framework, it just kind of gets us into this mind, like this frame of mind to figure out, okay, how are we going to support this individual? What do we need to do to make sure that they're able to support themselves? And if it's the AAC user themselves, they can figure out, how can I plan out my day so that I'm ready for when this event and this opportunity presents itself. All right, so I like to do a little case study here. I'm trying to do it based on very familiar, I guess, characters or TV characters. So I have Joey from Friends. So we want to figure out, what are Joey's strengths and interests? So Joey really loves food and he really loves his friends. So in what environment are we targeting communication? We're going to John's Pizzeria in New York City with Joey and his 5 friends. So what are some of the expectations for Joey in this moment? Joey wants to be able to order his own favorite pizza. We want to figure out, what tool does Joey use? Currently he uses core and fringe vocabulary that's on his touch chat word power 60. All right, so what core words would you include for Joey, and what fringe words would you include for Joey? So ones that I would include for him would be can, I, get. So we have, again, that core word question, can I get? But we need to have those fringe words attached to it, because we don't know what it is that he wants. Joey's pizzeria can have a plethora of food items. They can have lasagna, they can have a calzone, they can have a meatball sub, they can have a pizza. What is it that Joey wants to eat? So you might include those fringe words like pizza, calzone, lasagna, so that he can request for whatever specific food item he wants. All right, so now I have another case study for Snoopy. So Snoopy is a character from the Peanuts comics. Not sure if anyone's familiar with them, but I grew up reading the Peanuts, so I thought Snoopy would be a great case study to work on. So what are Snoopy's strengths and interests? He loves to dance with his friends. That's his favorite thing to do. He's a dancing machine. And we want to figure out, again, in what environment or area are we targeting communication? We want him to be on stage for the after school dance. That's what he wants to do. He wants to dance with his friends. That's, that's his interest. That's what motivates him. So the expectation for Snoopy in this moment right now is for him to go up to Schroeder to request for more of his favorite song. And he's currently using a Go Talk 9. And again, we want to make sure we're including both core and fringe words so he can participate in his school activity of that school dance. All right, so let's talk about some of the core words and the fringe words you might include for Snoopy. So some core words could be help, up, down, I want more, on, put, like, it, stop. So these are a whole bunch of core words that I included for Snoopy, but I also wanted to make sure I included music because we know that he really likes music, but maybe he likes a specific artist. We can also always add in a specific artist or specific song in there as well, if that generates his interest. Maybe move around or take away some of the core words and add some artists that he wants in there. So you can make so many sentences just with this Go Talk 9. He can request for I want more, put on music, put music up, put music down, I like music, stop music, stop it. So there's so many options that he can use just with these 9 words essentially, or 12 words that he has on his system. But we're using both those core and those fringe words to give him those opportunities so he can communicate. It might not be as, free, or it doesn't provide as many opportunities as maybe a high-tech device. It might be a little bit more limiting, just the device itself, the Go Talk 9. But again, it's user preference and it depends on what is the activity at hand and what works best for the user. All right, so I have another case study here. This is Michael Scott. So again, this is another well-known, familiar TV character, and we want to figure out, again, what are Michael's strengths and interests, his interests. His interests are his Dunder Mifflin employees. He loves his job. Michael is a workaholic in a non-workaholic way. He just really loves being at work with his coworkers. So in what environment or area are we targeting communication? We're at the Dunder Mifflin Scranton branch office. That's where he works at. That's where he resides most of the day when he's not at home. And that's the environment that Michael's currently in. So his expectation is for him to sit with his favorite coworkers, Jim, Pam, and Dwight, at lunch. He wants to have lunch with them. He wants to sit with them and just enjoy being with them. So what device, whether it's low tech and high tech, are being used to support Michael? So he currently uses LAMP Words for Life 84 hit full. Now, or 84 full hit. If you hear me saying a lot of these devices and you're not familiar with them, that is okay. I'm not expecting you to be familiar with them. This is just more to give you an idea of how to utilize the AAC user's device within, again, this framework with whatever it is that they're trying to do, whatever activity they're trying to accomplishment, and just really how to integrate it into their everyday life. So let's see. So what core words would you include for Michael, and what fringe words would you include for Michael? So some core words I would include for him is I want to eat with you. Now that is a beautiful sentence using only core words, but how can we make it a little bit more specific? How can we figure out exactly maybe what he wants to eat, or who he wants to eat with, or where he wants to eat? So you might add in words like pizza, rigatoni. We might add the names of his coworkers. We might add in locations that maybe he wants to eat at, or places in the office he wants to eat at. And again, we just want to be as specific as possible and give them as much language as possible. So it's not just requests either. I think you could see that when we're initiating and starting AAC, a lot of times what we're noticing is we're having these individuals request, but we need to keep our options open and consider allowing them to comment, maybe commenting on, this is a big room, this is good pizza. So just keep that in mind when you're working with an AAC user, that we're not just limiting them by requesting or only allowing them opportunities to request, but we're allowing them opportunities to comment. All right, so now we kind of have these ideas, we have the strategies, but how? What do we do now? I don't understand. You tell me what to do, you tell me what words to add in, but like, how do I do this? So I like to hide some of the words on the screen. So this is an example of LAMP Words for Life. There are 84 buttons on this page alone. It can be very overwhelming for anyone, not just for the AAC user, literally anyone. You open this up and you're like, okay, I'm trying to scan, I'm trying to find a specific word. Where's the word that I want to say? I can't find it. So a lot of times when we're introducing it, it might be a good idea to hide some of the words so it lessens that overwhelming feeling. So maybe right now in the moment, we're just using the words my, go, more, or maybe we're doing it based on that specific activity. I highly encourage you to do it based more on activity and not just leave their device like this all the time. Maybe when they go into speech therapy, or maybe when they go into school or something, or maybe when they're going to the movies, you can have activity-based vocabulary available so they know where to find it. It's not as overwhelming, but throughout their day, you should let them have access to what their system usually looks like, so they just have availability and, again, those opportunities and access to words that maybe they want to say and they just need help to find them. But the hide and seek option really helps, or the hide options, not seek. The hide option really helps individuals figure out where the word is, and then remember that motor planning. Oh, if I want to select the word my, I know I have to hit this button, then this button, then this button, and that's my motor path to get to the word my. All right, so what's another way that we can incorporate using these AAC devices, and how can we do it? Best way is following the leader. You want to take the individual's lead. Communicating with a device needs to be motivating. It needs to be fun. If there's no motivating factor, if it's not enjoyable, for what are they going to communicate? The same with me. If I'm not in the mood and I don't feel like having a conversation, why am I going to do it if it's not something that's enjoyable for me? So if the motivating factor is you leaving, target the word go, and guess what? You go away. I've done that plenty of times with some children that I work with when I'm just starting out an AAC device and I'm just trying to get some kind of interest and some kind of enjoyment with it. They'll press the word go and I'm gone, and then I come back, and then they press the word go and then I'm gone, and then I come back. The motivating factor was me leaving. Or maybe the motivating factor is the word off, or taking your shoes off rather. So you're going to target the word off so that you can take your shoes on and off. And everyone is motivated by something. You just have to figure out what it is that motivates the individual. You have to be creative. You have to be open to everything. You can plan all you want and have an idea in your mind of what exactly you want to work on with your AAC user. But if it's something that interests you but doesn't interest them, then you got to kind of throw that out the window and figure out what it is that interests them. And keep in mind, we're not drilling here. Communication is fun and essential. I say this to a lot of the parents that I work with in general. We hear a lot of times parents saying, say this, do that, say this, do that. What's this? What's that? And that's just not fun. That's taking a quiz almost every single second of your entire life. Let's try to give them opportunities just to comment. Let's just try to model on a device. Let's just try to have a normal conversation with them. We're not drilling here. We're not expecting them to say this because I told you to say it. We want them to say it because they wanted to. So maybe I modeled it a couple of times, like, yeah, I like this. I like this song. And then I'm waiting. Maybe they want to comment on that. They like the song, or maybe they can comment that they don't like it. It just varies, but we're not drilling here. We're not saying, what's this? Do this, touch this. It's more of, let's have fun. It's enjoyable. No one wants to be bombarded with questions. It's a fun process. We want it to be enjoyable for everyone involved, not only I guess the family members or communication partners, but especially the AAC user themselves. This is their voice. This is how they're communicating. And I want to make sure that it's not a stressful, a stressor for them rather, but a enjoyable moment for them, a way for them to communicate. All right, so let's brainstorm. You kind of heard me talk a little bit about AAC and how to incorporate it, but I want to know if you're facing any challenges right now using an AAC device. So if there any questions that I can answer, or I guess, what are your questions? That's usually what I'd like to do. What are your questions in regards to AAC? If any, and it's okay that you don't. If anything, what I can do too is I can give you a common question that I hear a lot from parents. Sometimes I will hear that when a child starts to use an AAC device, they are fearful that the child may never communicate with words from their mouth. And what I explained to them is that it's not that they won't, maybe it's that they can't. And let's give them an opportunity. Let's give them a modality. Let's view it more as a spare tire. You might not always need a spare tire, but when you need a spare tire, you need one. So maybe we need to start seeing an AAC device kind of like a spare tire. Right now, they need that spare tire. They need it to communicate. Doesn't mean that they'll always need it, but maybe they will. And that's totally okay if that's what they need. That's how they communicate. But if they say a word using their mouth or they say a sign, I'm going to take that and accept that as well. I'm not going to make them sit down and press the button on the device. If they're saying that, if they're using the sign more or they're saying the word more, I'll accept that. I'm not going to say, okay, now you have to say it on your device. It's accepting all types of language. They're called total language communicators. And let's use that. We're going to make sure that they're communicating any way possible. And as a heads up, you might hear me say children a lot. That's just because I have most of my experience with children, but that doesn't mean that AAC is just for children. It's for anyone and everyone. You can be as young as 6 months old to as old as 106. This is for anyone and everyone, and these tips are also for anyone and everyone. All right, so I usually go over a little bit about what FAAST is, but because you're here, I'm assuming you know what FAAST is. I'll kind of go a quick overview of what FAAST is, though. FAAST is Florida's state assistive tech program. Every state and every territory within the United States has their own assistive tech program. And we offer, some services as well attached to the FAAST program at the regional demonstration center level. So we offer some information and assistance. So if you call us, ask any questions, I will give you support. Maybe you want to know where you can get an AAC evaluation, where you can purchase a specific device. Maybe you want to figure out what devices we have on hand so you can loan them out. Call us, ask us any questions, or we'll provide you with that support. Maybe you need some support with a demonstration on device. So you have a device, but maybe you're looking for a specific programming feature of it. Maybe you want to learn how to hide or show some words on a device and you need that extra support. You want to edit a page or just figure out the programming of it. You can give us a call and we will provide you with that support. We can also provide you with AT training. So if you have a question about a specific topic, especially regarding any type of assistive technology, we can provide a training on that specific piece of assistive technology or that topic of assistive technology. And then we also have, our loans, which I highly encourage, if you haven't had the opportunity to do so, really loan out the assistive tech devices so you can become familiar yourself. You can loan it out for 30 days, get that experience, take an AAC device, maybe to a restaurant, try to order using it and really get that hands-on experience with an AAC device or any AT device. It doesn't have to be AAC. It can be any type of assistive technology. So I usually talk about things on the state level, but I wanted to leave time for questions in case anyone has any questions. And typically this is, again, information that I think most of you know if you're attending. I'll go over it, but if you want to find any items maybe at a discounted price or sometimes for free, you can go to our Assistive Technology Classifieds page and see if there's anything that you can find. Again, these are typically gently used items that are no longer beneficial to the previous owner. And it kind of varies what's available and what's not. It's similar to that of a Facebook marketplace. And then if you have any questions about getting a financial loan for purchasing devices, you can always reach out to our headquarters and I can put you in contact with the person to give you that extra support. Typically I have videos on different types of devices that we have on hand. Maybe the user needs an eye gaze device, so they need to use their eyes to communicate versus their hands. So typically I try to show small videos, but again, like I said, I wanted to leave questions or room for questions at the end. We do have some switch toys that I can show you. Press a button and it'll activate the device. Show it real quick. And then this is another one that we have. And And again, these are just different types of assistive technology. Let's say you have an individual who doesn't have that motor ability to put their hand down on the switch. You can rent out one or loan out one of our proximity switches, and you just hover any body part, really, for the most part, over the switch. And it not only will it activate whatever item you're trying to turn on, but it'll also give you audio feedback and visual feedback. So it'll light up blue and it'll make a beeping sound as well. We have different types of assistive tech tools. We have adaptive scissors for individuals who want to participate in an arts and crafts course or just want to cut a piece of paper, but maybe aren't able to hold down onto scissors. So they can cut it using our items that we have. Again, they can loan out these items so they can test it out themselves. I didn't do a very good job at it, but I promise it's much easier than how I'm making it seem. And then we have a bunch of tools for note writing, individuals with note writing difficulties. This is called the Smart Pen, and it'll not only record the lecture, but you will also be able to, when you go back home, using a specific notebook, you can click on the playback button and you can listen back to the lecture or the course that you were in. So you can kind of sit down and really process that information. So again, this is just kind of a recap of what I wanted you to learn throughout this presentation. I wanted you to become familiar and comfortable with the devices. I want you to be able to choose some of that right vocabulary and introduce that vocabulary within a natural setting. So really think of that set model and how it can be beneficial to you and the AAC user. Are there any questions and comments? Anything that I can help with? Not, that's okay. Awesome. So if you have any questions, please feel free to get in touch with me. My name again is Christina, but I go by Tina Givner. I'm a speech and language pathologist, and you can always reach out to me via email at cxg907@med.miami.edu. And then these are my references that I used to create this presentation. That's it. Thank you guys for joining us today. And if you have any questions, I'll be on.